Hello, welcome to Real Voices of Happy Valley. Viv and Dave Boardman talking to really interesting people who live up and down the Calder Valley. This one is largely me talking to Chris Goddard.
Yeah, well, it's all you. I wasn't there, which is why, you've missed off an important thing between you men.
Go on, tell me.
Of all the walks that Chris has produced maps of, and there's some really interesting ones, I think one of the most interesting is the Anne Lister walk.
Oh, around Hebden Hall in Halifax.
Yes. And, popularised by the amazing Sir Anne Jones in the fantastic Gentleman Jack. But you didn't mention that.
No.
No.
I'm being told off here, if anybody who's listening.
Yes, if I'd have been there, I would have said, lads, what about the women?
Yes.
But you do mention another great book, or the author of it, Ben Myers, for the Coiners Walk.
Did you notice when you listen back to it, though, that I don't think we mentioned the name of his book?
No, I was just about to say you could fill in with that missing knowledge, Dave.
Why would I talk anymore? You just correct me now. What was the book called?
The Gallows Pole, again, dramatised fairly recently.
So both books and TV series, because was it Jill Liddington who's written a lot of books about Anne Lister?
Yeah. Fantastic local author.
I was quite interested in chatting to him about his walks, his industrial walks, and his music. And maybe if you'd been on there with us, you would have got a bit more about Anne Lister and the novels.
And his dogs. The man's allergic to cats, which is why he sort of set out walking a lot of the time to get away from the cat hair in the house. But I heard a dog come in with Caroline.
Yes.
And I would have liked to know, do they go on the walks with him? Do they like it? Do they appreciate them?
We'll have to go and talk to him again, won't we?
Apart from that, Dave, it was a good interview, yeah.
Thank you. I think this is the first time I've been mildly rebuked while we've been doing this podcast.
Oh, I was going to say, not the first time ever.
No. It has happened before, and you don't always wait for us to be doing podcasts to be sort of mildly rebuking me, do you? Anyway, let's get on with it. We started off having a lovely cup of tea in Chris's house.
Take it away.
Did say it was called Chris Goddard, didn't I?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here having a cup of tea with Chris Goddard. Are you Chris or Christopher when we're doing podcasts?
I'm with you. Christopher when I'm writing books. But...
Right. Okay, Chris. Nice cup of tea, by the way. So thanks for that. So interested in the fact that you sort of write books about walks around Yorkshire in particular, and they're available as books, as maps, and as prints. I've seen. But I'd like to know how you got into that.
I mean, I would say, like, I always did maps as a kid. I drew maps everywhere I went. It was sort of my way of seeing the world. And we'd go on holiday to Greece, and I'd be like, "There's no maps. I'll make a map." Which they didn't look massively different from the ones I've done here. They seemed sort of black and white, just pencil and pen. But I didn't ever think it would become anything other than just something I did, a little hobby. And even when I moved here, I just started exploring the moors because that's what you do. You want to get up.
Because it's beautiful up there.
Yeah. And we moved into a house with cats in that I'd been in previously. So there was a load of cat hair in the house, and I'm allergic to cats, and I couldn't spend any time in the house. So I was just out on the moors sort of every day. And I started going, there's none of these paths like anything like what's on the map. And so I started making my own maps. And
so, I was going to say, when they're already maps, or were you going on different walks?
Lower down, the paths are put on map. As soon as you get on the moors, the pathways, there might be a kind of sunken little holloway, but it'll be overgrown with heather, and then there'll be a perfectly good path 100 metres away. And I just couldn't work it out. I was like, why doesn't this map show up? So I started started making my own map, just really for my own thing. It's idea. And then I thought, well, I've always quite fancied doing a walking book, so I started to put together sort of walks, and it took 8 years to come to fruition. But
8?
That first book, yeah. Because it was doing lots of other stuff. It wasn't like it was a full-time job.
So which was the first one, Chris?
That was the West Yorkshire Moors. Should have been 2 volumes, but...
I was going to say, is there 3 altogether?
No, there's only 1 book.
Is there?
That was the problem. I just covered like the whole of West Yorkshire.
Right.
Whereas the Woods was going to be 3.
Right.
2 or 3.
That's where I'm getting confusing myself.
But the Moors I just did all in one go, and almost regret it now because I missed a few little bits off and just covered too much, sort of almost too quickly. But I didn't really know what I was doing then. So,
this is Real Voices of Happy Valley, based on the Calder Valley. Which ones? Let's start off relatively simple. People who are sort of like a walk, but aren't sure quite where to go from, say, Hebden Bridge or Todmorden or Sowerby Bridge.
The best local book is West Yorkshire Woods Part 1, which is only Calder Valley. It's only the woods and the sort of lower parts, and all of it's really accessible from all the towns, all the way, from Brighouse to Todmorden. Often, people get that, but will say, I didn't know that path was there. I didn't know that thing was there. I didn't know that, and that's really satisfying to hear that you've managed to introduce people to things on their doorstep they didn't know about.
That's fantastic. I mean, I would never describe myself as a walker. I know people who go on walking holidays and they sort of walk through bits of Scottish Highlands where they don't see anybody else for the 2 weeks they're away and things like that. They are walkers in my book. But I just love, if I'm living in Hebden Bridge at the moment, if I'm going to Todmorden or I'm going to sort of Sowerby Bridge or even occasionally to Halifax, I just like to sort of walk there if possible. Got a mate. Pint with him occasionally in Mytholmroyd. It's only about 1.5 miles. But I wouldn't dream of going by road. It's a great walk down through the woods, and I very frequently see deer on the walk. Yeah.
And there's so many different ways you can go just between Hebden Bridge and Mytholmroyd. Quite often I wander there and be like, go up the edge of the moor and then down, or maybe through one of the different woods.
And there are a staggering amount of footpaths.
I think we might have the densest footpath network in the country in Calderdale. Certainly parts of it are the most dense, and we've actually just been doing a survey for the council of all their paths, and you just realise how many there are. Even I'm like, God, I didn't know that one and that one, and some lovely little places. We are spoilt with the path network here.
When I'm going for a walk, I often wonder what's the history of that particular path. Where is it? And sometimes you feel, I mean, if you go into Gibson Mill, for example, you think people used to walk this to go to work and come home from work and things. I just wondered about if there's much about the history of any particular paths.
The actual paths. I mean, we've obviously got a lot of the Packhorse trails, which are even older than the mills. And some of them you can see the sort of surface on the moors. Other ones, occasionally you can sort of feel it below the ground. You're like, God, buried under there is the old surface. And, but then on top of that, there's all these paths from the weavers' cottages to the mills and that's why you've got this crisscrossing sort of network on the hillsides that wouldn't otherwise be there. Kind of other parts of the country, you get all these like postmen. They would say it's where the postman went. It was never public, but the postman almost is like beating a path for people to be able to explore. But round here, it was people going to work in the mills. I think was a lot of it.
Because it's great. The valley's great for those sort of routes. The footpath, the Packhorse paths must have been there a long time before roads and rail and canal and what have you, and they're all part of the valley and the valley's history, aren't they?
When I first started doing that first book, I the first instinct is to look at the moors and go, it's empty, there's nothing there, it's kind of not a lot of features, there's no real peaks, and And then the more you look at it, the more there's just layers and layers of like history, and the trackways is one of them. There'll be like different. You start to peel underneath and go, oh, there was a path here, and then you go, oh no. But what I was going to add, yes. So all these trackways on the moor, the ones that I found interesting, the peat, like a lot of the like cuts where it sort of dug down, it was like for gathering peat on the moors, and they would pull like a sledge or something along it, sort of develop this in this groove, and this is like centuries of gathering peat to burn as fuel, because that was because we've got the peat here, it's accessible, and those are not on the whole public footpath now, but I think quite a few of the ones on Midgley Moor are those.
Oh, right.
I do like that idea, although we obviously shouldn't burn peat now, but for poor people for centuries it was the main source of fuel.
Well, pardon my ignorance. I know we shouldn't burn peat now, but I don't fully understand why we shouldn't burn peat now.
Well, mainly because there's not much peat. This is a rare source of peat. There's only so much of it, and we've got in north of England large percentage of like the peat in Europe or something like that. So it's something, and it's an important sink of carbon also as a sort of for wildlife, and it's an important sort of ecosystem. So yeah, I think that's why. But when that was all you had on your doorstep, you made use of it.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, sort of like, I was going to ask you about music. I will ask you about music later, but I know like one of my favourite bands is the Peat Bog Fairies. You know how they got their name?
No.
Living in a croft. I'm not sure which part of the Highlands of Scotland they're in.
They're from Skye, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it probably would be Skye, but they're all sort of in a croft, making music, writing songs and writing pieces of music. And there was an old lady in a croft across the fields, and they would dig peat and pile peat up at the back of her house, and somebody else came to help her and said, "You've got loads of peat." And she said, "Yes, it's the Peat Bog Fairies from across the fields that did it." That's how they got their name. Anyway, we'll go back to that later on. One of the heritage stuff, one of your books, I think, is the Industrial Walks in Sowerby Bridge.
It's just one walk, but it's a fold-out map of the Sowerby Bridge Industrial Heritage Walk, as we called it. And I did that with Calderdale Industrial Museum. So I got a lot of interesting information from them. But yeah, it's...
So where does that walk go?
It's only about 6 miles around Sowerby and sort of Triangle, that sort of area. But it's a mix of like lovely fields and woods and an incredible number of mills, huge mills, and there's a lot left in Sowerby Bridge. I don't know why, but they didn't pull it all down as they did in most other places, so it's got a lot left. And
I wonder if they didn't have the insurance scams people had in Hebden Bridge.
But
alleged insurance scams people had in Hebden Bridge years ago.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I mean, they're all fantastic buildings, mills, the ones that are left. I mean, yeah, I lived in Oldham for a while. You got amazing sort of mill buildings there, often turned into trendy apartments, but
you kind of need it, because otherwise, like Stoups Mill, that is the beautiful one that's just been pulled down in Jumble Hole. Like one of my favourite places, but yeah, people were saying that it was dangerous. I don't know whether they just wanted the stone from that, but anyway, that's gone. And because it.
And tell us about the Coiners walk. Did you do that? You did that with Ben Myers.
Yeah, the bookshop in town, Bookcase, they recommended it. Jake there was like, "Why don't you two do this?" And we didn't know each other, and he put us in touch, and we were like, "Yeah, that makes sense." And just linking up all the sites to do with the coiners, the sort of real life coiners, and then some of like what inspired Ben in his book, to, like certain passages. But it's most of the walks I've created, there hasn't been like huge problems with loads of people walking them. and erosion and that sort of thing. It's not popular, but that route has, and especially a bit across the moor, they keep having to put in more bits of boardwalk. So right. I know Ben's donated a lot of his money from proceeds from that to Crows, because they do a lot of work on it, especially with the TV series coming out.
It's the dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's various bits of the tourist industry that has wants to be sustainable, but the more you say this is a really interesting walk, and the more people have heard about it, the more they want to go and trample all over it.
Generally, I don't think it's a huge problem around here because the numbers that come aren't huge, but it's just the moor. When you've got that many people walking on sort of this boggy moor, it just becomes squelchy and the paths spread out and
right. So you said it took 8 years to do the first one. So how long is it since then?
I'm trying to remember. It's probably about 8 years since then.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done 3 more of the hand-drawn books.
Yeah.
Each one took about 2 years, and then I'm now doing Coast Path books. And I've done 2 of them, and I've got 2 more to do.
Yes, I must admit, I had a quick look at your website before I came. I hadn't realised you'd done the Coastal Path ones until I looked at it. I knew about the others.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's not local, but even the 2 I've done so far, the South and the Southwest, because they're more easily accessible. The North Coasts are coming as one book, but it's not ready yet.
Right. So which of them are you planning on doing?
They're both because it's a series of 4 books on the whole England Coast Path.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to go all the way around the country.
Right.
The Northwest and Northeast will be one book together, and I'm doing a hand-drawn guide to the Yorkshire coast, which I've done a lot of and is lovely. Yeah.
Strangely enough, I'm from Liverpool, which is in the northwest. But in terms of the actual coast and coastal paths, I probably know the sort of Yorkshire coast a bit better. I mean, you worked at sort of festivals in Bridlington and Whitby and what have you. While you're there, you get to know a bit of the coast as well. In fact, both of those festivals are right on the coast.
Nice. And lovely spots as well. Like that's the thing. Like the Yorkshire coast is really pretty spectacular.
It's amazing
when you compare it, like Merseyside and the Wirral. It's pleasant, but it isn't. There's not a lot of drama to it. It's quite flat.
No, one of the great things about sort of the Wirral is Hilbury Island.
Yes.
Which is in the River Dee for those who don't know. But it's not a spectacular coastline like sort of Yorkshire coast and various other bits of the sort of English and Scottish and Welsh coastlines as well. Yeah. I mean, there are very nice places on, just north of Liverpool. You've got Freshfield with this of Red Squirrel Sanctuary and what have you.
And Formby Dunes. And
yes. Yeah. And I love the sculptures. Another place at Crosby.
Yeah.
But they're the sculptures at the coast rather than the coast.
Crosby Beach without the Gormleys is not a particularly special place, I guess.
No, it never was. It was. As a kid, you get a bus up to Crosby and mess around in the sand dunes, but once you've messed about in the sand dunes for a while, what else are you going to do but get the bus home? It's like the Yorkshire coast is amazing and potentially dangerous as it's falling into the sea in spots.
That's the problem. That's why that isn't completed yet, because the East Yorkshire section they're trying to open a path and it's fallen into the sea before they've even got it in place. So
yes,
yes.
I mean, I once did the foolish thing of walking. Of walking. Caroline's home. I once did the really foolish thing of walking a few miles along the coast at the bottom of the cliffs to Robin Hood's Bay, and of course by the time we got there we mistimed it and we were wading through water by the time we actually got to Robin Hood's Bay.
There's a few escape routes there, but last time I did it I timed it right because the coast path goes inland, but it was lovely going along the bottom, and if you get to the point there's what they call mermaids mermaid stools and mermaid seats on the point, and scattered amongst them all these seals. Like, just amazing. Like, this point there.
Yes,
I don't know why more isn't made of that, but anyway, I shall in my book.
Yeah, I love sails. I got a friend who lives in North Ronaldsay in Orkney, and from where he lives to where we can go for a pint, you walk along the beach and you have to sort of walk in and out of the seals on the beach. Which is magical.
Yeah.
And the beer tastes better when you've done something like that. Yeah. But I'm also interested in sort of your music. I mean, we first got to know each other really through you DJing at the Trades Club a long time ago when I was sort of doing the bookings there.
Yeah, when I first moved here. Yeah, and there was all sorts of world music on, and you were very encouraging because I did sort of DJ'd world music, world sort of dance stuff, and you were very encouraging, and we had do you remember the Acid Cayley Collective?
Yes.
Which was all very experimental. It was basically jamming, a band jamming along with the DJ and then going off on their own, and then me bringing them back. And I did really enjoy it, but some of it was just chaos, because we didn't quite know which musicians we were going to have, and never practiced together.
Yeah, I must admit that sort of the anarchist in me sort of enjoys things like that. It generally works, but
Yeah. There was one particular. I remember we're not going to Glastonbury on the Glastonbury weekend, and we'd set up tents in there, and it was absolutely packed. It really did feel like a festival vibe, and there was an amazing piper, and which was just some stunning music that night.
Actually, I've forgotten about that one. Yes, it's fun, but you're still DJing occasionally at the Trades.
Still play there. Just 2 or 3 times a year when there's an opening. Normally when a band cancels, and I do a night called Kismet at the Golden Lion in Todmorden. Again, 4 or 5 times a year, and.
I'll look forward to that. We're about to move to Todmorden next week.
You've got to come down. I mean, we've we've got a following because we do seem to win over a new crowd every time. People are like, well, I don't know any of this music. And by the end of the night, they're dancing around to world dance stuff they don't know, and it's always really satisfying.
Well, that's one great thing about. I mean, I'm not keen on the term world music myself, but it's difficult to say. You can't say, music from this country in Africa and this part of South America. So it is a useful sort of shorthand term. But when people are used to American, European pop or rock music, and the various mainstreamy or just close to the mainstream, and then you introduce them to sort of West African sort of rhythms and things like that, and I've heard that a lot. I don't know this music, not sure about it, and then it doesn't take long very often to really get into it. It doesn't suit sort of traditional DJing because it's almost impossible to mix a lot of the stuff. But it really doesn't matter. It's just about music, and there is no proper DJing, particularly our night. So you just get used to this sort of quite strange vibe where it goes all over the place from song to song, and rather than it being the same sort of beat or the same rhythm all night. Which. I get bored of that anyway. Yes. I was talking to somebody else who does Mondays at the Golden Lion, and to paraphrase, he said, I just listened to all this music that was going thump, 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 thump. And I said, well, I can play something different from that. I mean, he just plays like Zappa and Beefheart and things like that. But it's, again, it's like getting into something different. I work at a lot of festivals, and what excites me is bands I've never heard of.
Bands, and you think it shouldn't work, and then you look at them and you're not. And then they come on and they just perform. And you do Knock and Gorrick. That's why I love it, because I almost never know any of the bands, or one or two of the ones who are regulars. But the main stage stuff, and it's nearly always incredible. I mean,
yes, it's one of my favourite weekends of the year. Really, Knockengorrock. We talk about Knockengorrock World Ceilidh in Galloway in Scotland.
I feel it's musically my spiritual home, because it exactly encapsulates the music that I love. It's folk music, there's world music, and there's dance music, and it does all of them really well. And in the most beautiful setting.
I was just going to say it's almost in its own valley. I mean, did you get much of a chance to walk up on the hills around there?
A bit. I what I try and do when I get there is, before starting drinking, go out for a good walk up onto the Cairnsmore of Cars Fair, which is like 800-metre mountain that stands above the site. Because once you've been to bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning, there's no way you're going to get up and do that. So I try and do it on that first day.
Yeah.
And then you realise, like, it's this tiny little, you just sort of a dot in the middle of all these great moors and forests.
Yeah. One of the things I discovered about that as well is, again, we're talking, we're in Galloway in sort of southwest Scotland, and on the hillside there's a little piece of woodland called Dodnays, which is where I've been living for the last 18 years, and there's a Dodnays woods just north of Keswick as well, and they're the only 3 Dodnayses I've ever heard of. Yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point. You'll have to go and have a look at them, Chris, at some point.
I'll have a look on the map.
Yeah.
For the one
yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Thanks for chatting to us.
Thank you.
And so you've got a website, which is
www.christophergoddard.net.
And people can have a look at the books. Can they buy the books and maps? And
everything's available on the website, free postage.
Okay. We don't do any advertising, but go on the website and buy some of Chris's stuff.
Go to your local sort of bookshop area and you can buy them as well.
That's true. That's good. It's good to keep the independent bookshops going as well. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Chris Goddard. So that was me chatting to Chris Goddard.
Grand job you made of it, Dave.
Say that now. So if anybody else thinks that was a grand job done of that, make sure you click the thing that says like or follow on your podcast provider, and go and make some comments on our Facebook page, Real Voices of Happy Valley. Okay, back next week with us chatting about our move.
Yes,
to
big move.